After a few days away, it is once again time to cover the 2018 UFL Playoffs as we're now into the divisional round. Last time out, we saw in the wild card round where the Boston Cruisers beat the Columbia Marines, then the Utah Eagles upset the Buffalo Terriers, followed by the Baltimore Bashers making the comeback against the St. Louis Rockets, and then the Atlanta Suns almost shutting out the Jackson Boxers. That was an incredible game. So now we got our division matchups underway, starting off with the Baltimore Bashers visiting the Minnesota Tundra. Followed after that would be the Atlanta Suns visiting the Los Angeles Stars. After that, it will be the Boston Cruisers visiting the Kansas Engineers. And we finish it off with the Utah Eagles visiting the Miami Zombies, with the conference championship set for after that. So we look at the first match of the division round as the Baltimore Bashers visit the Minnesota Tundra. Baltimore barely pulled off the win last week against St. Louis. Meanwhile, Minnesota looking even better than they did by and large from last year, trying to make it back to the UFL title game and this time win it. And the game got started with a bang as on the very first play, Baltimore took the kickoff return and took it 93 yards for the touchdown to start the game off, leaving the crowd stunned. However, it was a defensive slugfest after that. However, Minnesota got on the board with a 39-yard field goal, and that would end the first quarter as Baltimore was up 7-3. The second quarter got off to a quick start when Minnesota got a 1-yard touchdown run very early into the quarter to take a 10-7 lead. However, there was nothing left after that, so going to halftime, Minnesota leads Baltimore 10-7. After that, we went into the second half, where it was continued to remain a defensive slugfest, and Baltimore, with just 2 minutes remaining, managed to get on the board again with a 44-yard field goal to tie it up and go into the final quarter tying it up at 10 apiece. Down to the final 15 minutes, and this game could still go either way. Talk about major difference from how Baltimore played this week from what they played in St. Louis. However, disaster struck Baltimore as Minnesota got on the board with a 21-yard field goal to take a 13-10 lead with just 13 minutes remaining. However, that would be short-lived as on the next drive, Baltimore got near midfield and then they threw a 51-yard touchdown bomb to take a 17-13 lead with just 12 minutes and 51 seconds remaining. However, thankfully for Baltimore, they managed to stop Minnesota for the rest of the game. The game was over and the Baltimore Bashers pulled off the upset on the road to knock off the Minnesota Tundra 17-13. And they are moving on to the conference championship for the first time ever. Oh my god, what a crazy game that was. And that kickoff return to start the game was the game saver, for Baltimore, as they would have lost without that, as they outplayed Minnesota offensively, and they did really well defensively too, although there were no turnovers at all in that game by and large. So, a very disappointing finish for Minnesota, kind of like how in the PFA where we had the defending champs, both Birmingham, Omaha and Philadelphia missing the playoffs. Meanwhile, the team that lost their title game, Chicago and Minnesota, did better, but were one and done in the playoffs. Ouch, that sucks. As they're now forced to watch the playoffs on the couch, as Baltimore is moving on to see who they're going to be playing next week. After that, we go out to Los Angeles, as it's the Los Angeles Stars hosting the Atlanta Suns, as we saw the Suns almost shut out the Jackson Boxers last week in one of the most defensive games I've ever seen. But they're going up against one of the best teams the Western Conference has to have. And the game got started with a 3-yard touchdown run halfway through the first quarter for Los Angeles. And with that, the first quarter was over with Los Angeles leading 7-0. We went into the second quarter, however, and Atlanta's defense really clamped down hard on Los Angeles' offense. They couldn't get anything going. However, Atlanta's offense really couldn't get anything going much either until near the end of the second quarter, where they went for an 11-yard touchdown pass to tie up the game. However, very soon after that, they managed to force a turnover deep in Los Angeles territory, However, their drive stalled, and with just 17 seconds remaining, they went for the 35-yard field goal, which was good. And the first half ended with Atlanta on the road beating Los Angeles right now 10-7. Holy crap, who would have saw that coming? The second half began with Atlanta with the lead, and of course the game went back and forth as a defensive slugfest. Neither team could really get anything going. However, around halfway through the third quarter, Los Angeles finally got a drive going, made down past midfield and such, and then they finally threw a 21-yard touchdown pass to retake the lead, which would end the third quarter with Los Angeles now leading 14-10 over Atlanta. And after that, the fourth quarter continued on with the defensive struggle as Los Angeles still could not get anything going against Atlanta's #1 defense, almost by and large, one of the best ever. However, with 4 minutes remaining, they got a massive win when their defense had a little bit of a crack in it, and Los Angeles struck, and they delivered a 55-yard touchdown bomb with just 4 minutes remaining to seal the game, as they would win it 21-10, as they will host the Western Conference Championship and be in it for the first time ever. Los Angeles got the very close victory. It was really, really close. Los Angeles had only 250 yards. Atlanta was not that far off in terms of yards. They really couldn't run the ball. In fact, Atlanta almost got 100 yards rushing. That was pretty good. However, almost killed Los Angeles was the turnovers. They had 3 turnovers in the game, but they still managed to barely get the win, mostly from that one little crack in the secondary that allowed Los Angeles to get that 55-yard touchdown run. So a strong finish for Atlanta with the second best defense in the league that allowed just like 170-something points. But Los Angeles is moving on to host the Western Conference Championship. And now it's time to find out their opponent, which would be the Boston Cruisers visiting the Kansas Engineers, with the winner visiting Los Angeles in the East with the Western Conference Championship. Boston beat Columbia the previous week. Meanwhile, Kansas, with the league's #1 defense, just allowing 168 points, which is 3 points short of tying the 2000 Ravens, for God's sake, for #1 defense of all time. Ready to go out here and have a slugfest to continue on with the game, the playoffs. And both offenses struggled against a really good defensive effort today, and it wasn't until 2.5 minutes remaining in the first quarter when Boston finally took the lead on a 3-yard touchdown run. However, soon after that, Kansas had a 52-yard touchdown pass to tie the game up going into the second quarter, with the game tied at 7. And then we go into the second quarter, where the game continued to be a defensive struggle as neither team could get anything going until near the end of the second quarter, where Kansas finally had a little bit of a chance. They got all the way downfield to deliver a 38-yard field goal, which was good to finish off the first half, with Kansas leading 10-7 over Boston. Going into the second half, Kansas really was starting to get things going offensively in terms of yards. However, in the second half, they had 3 turnovers deep in Boston territory that ruined any chances of probably sealing the game away. However, thanks to the league's #1 defense, they stopped Boston from scoring any points that would have helped them get the win and help take that lead back. And in the end, no score happened in the second half, as Kansas would go on to win it 10-7 in a defensive struggle. Oh my goodness, as Kansas is going to the Western Conference Championship. Oh man, blown opportunities for Boston, as Kansas put up almost 400 yards of offense, but they only got 10 points off it because they got those 3 turnovers. That really hurt. But in the end, Kansas defense, they made up all the effort they needed to get the close, hard-fought victory. So it's now them going to be visiting the Los Angeles Stars next week for the Western Conference Championship. But now we're down to our final division round game, as it's the Utah Eagles visiting the Miami Zombies. As Miami, with the best record in the league, they have the right to host the title game, and whoever wins this game will either be visiting Baltimore, which in Utah's case, or hosting Baltimore, in Miami's case, in the Eastern Conference Championship. So, as the game got started, it would start off really slow until halfway through the first quarter, when Miami got a 40-yard field goal to take the lead. However, Utah managed to go downfield, and with just 27 seconds remaining, they got a field goal from 27 yards out. So the first quarter ended with the game tied up at 3. After that, Miami, going from the first quarter into the second, had a long and very quick drive, got down to the 8-yard line of Utah's red zone, and they managed to get a touchdown to take the 10-3 lead. However, very soon afterwards, they managed to get an interception, and halfway through the second quarter, they got a 5-yard touchdown to take a 17-3 lead, as that would end the second quarter. So going into the second half, Miami got the ball to start the second half, and they slowly and methodically went downfield, and 12 minutes left, they managed to get a 1-yard touchdown run to take a 24-3 lead as they're dominating Utah. However, Utah finally got some offense going. However, they stalled near the 20-yard line or whatever, and they went for a 34-yard field goal, which was good with 2 minutes remaining, to cut the deficit from 24 to 6 going into the fourth quarter. From the third quarter into the fourth, Miami had a huge play after play after play to get right down to the 2-yard line in just 5 seconds into the fourth quarter, where they had a 2-yard touchdown pass to take a 31-6 lead, and Utah finally got some more offense going and got all the way down to the goal line, where with 9 minutes and 30 seconds remaining, they had a 1-yard touchdown run to cut the deficit to 31-13. However, Miami stopped them for the rest of the game, and Miami would go on to win the game 31-13. And Miami is heading to the Eastern Conference Championship for the first time ever, where they will host Baltimore in that game with home field advantage for the 2018 UFL title game on the line. And in this game, there were a lot of yards. In fact, both teams, funny enough, had 416 yards each. Miami had more passing yards, but Utah had almost double the rushing yards. It equaled up at 416. And Utah actually held the ball for over 7 minutes longer, but the turnovers just killed them, and they could not get any points against a really strong Miami defense. And with that, the division round is over, as we now take a look at the conference championships, and we now have the dates set. First up will be the Kansas Engineers visiting the Los Angeles Stars in the Western Conference Championship, and after that, it will be the Baltimore Bashers visiting the Miami Zombies in the Eastern Conference Championship, with the team with the best record remaining will host the 2018 UFL title game. Everyone except Kansas can host the title game, so it's going to either be Los Angeles at Miami, Los Angeles hosting Baltimore, Kansas at Miami, or Kansas at Baltimore. Miami will host any game no matter what. Los Angeles will host as long as Miami doesn't make it, and Baltimore can only host if Kansas wins. So that is it. We are now down to our final 4 teams: Kansas Engineers, Los Angeles Stars, Baltimore Bashers, and the Miami Zombies. Like 4 of the best teams in the league, and they're going to fight it out, and we're going to be down to just 2 teams remaining to get ready for the 2018 UFL title game. So, see you guys then for the conference championships, as we're getting closer to crowning a new UFL champion.